Hey, how's it going? It's time to do another quad head tutorial. Here's what we got so far from the other tutorials. And we're going to texture this guy in Photoshop. Here's a way to get these UV information out of this and into Photoshop. Just hit the print screen button when it's as big as you can get it on the screen. And move over to Photoshop. Control N opens up a new. Control V pastes in what you just copied, or whatever's in the clipboard. Then you can use the selection tool, select exactly the blue lines here. Go to image crop. There you go. There's the information. We can use this to paint directly onto if we wanted to. Let me show you a way to get this a little bit more cleaned up and on its own layer. Go to image, adjustments, desaturate. That's going to make it all one color. That's going to make this maneuver right here work a lot better. If we do the contrast all the way up, turns it to just black and white. Use this tool with a continuous unchecked. Click on the black and it'll select all the black in the screen. Select the inverse, you got all the white in the screen. Control C will copy it. Control V will paste it onto a new layer. See, it pasted on a new layer down here. So you can make this invisible. Let's add a new layer first. Okay, make this one invisible. Go ahead and paint black on this bottom layer here. There's a white layer on top. This is a lot better, so if you wanted to paint directly on it, you can take the paintbrush, go over, get a color and stuff, paint in here. Your UVs are still on top. Sometimes that distracts you a little bit too much, so you can take the opacity down on the lines so you can still see them, but it doesn't distract you as much. Or you can just quickly toggle on and off the visibility. As if you want to paint your own textures or do something like that. We're not going to use this too much right now, so let me just minimize it because we might use it a little bit later. Alright, well, the first step we're going to need to do here is get some images to use as our texture. And I recommend a site called 3D.sk, and it offers a really large variety of pictures for download. You have to pay for it. It's a $10 sign-in fee, but it gives you some really high quality and very large pictures. Alright, so come in here to before. Here's the images we're going to be using. Let me refresh it. Not showing up, and the reason why, let me fix it real quick. Alright, that's better. Okay, the problem with these images right here is the guy has hair. If you can get some images without hair, it'll work a lot better. We're going to do a workaround today, trying to get rid of the hair. We're going to paint some textures that don't have hair. These ones right here. And then we're going to use this the scalp of this person in that texture. Kind of wanted to do one like this because skin tones vary, and I want to show you real quick how to adjust for that, because it's a common thing you're going to have to do. Photoshop gives you a really neat tool to do it for you. Alright, so the first things first, we're going to take all these images, select them all, and we're going to go to Automate and a thing called the Photo Merge. Okay, this is intended for panoramics and stuff like that, where people take 3 pictures and merge all 3 of them together to make a panoramic or more pictures. But it works really good for us. It's going to do some processing and try to merge them, but I doubt it's going to even merge 2 of them together. It often merges when you're doing panoramics, merges for you, and sometimes you don't even have to do anything to it. But it gives you a really good tool set to use to merge these things together. So we're going to use that to merge the face together for us. Tried to merge one, doesn't look too good. Let me resize this window so it fits on your screen. Alright, this is what the interface looks like. This is the navigator, you can move around with it. So this is what it thought it was supposed to look like. You just drag them up here on the top. I like to drag them all out, so I start with a blank screen. Then we can start with the first one. You just drag it wherever you want it. You got a little bit of tools here. No resize. So you got to resize these to make sure that everything lines up before you bring it into here. It's kind of a pain sometimes. So what you want is the eye and the lips and the nose to line up a little bit. And I forgot a step, of course. This white area, or the pink around the head, that's going to mess us up. See how it's leaving white in here? We don't want that. So let me cancel that and show you the steps I forgot to take. And I'll show you another way to get photo merge. I'm just open these up with the file browser. Alright, now that these are open, we don't need that open anymore. And the trick to getting this thing to work really good is to select thin slices of the different views. Okay, I've got these photos saved elsewhere, so I'm just going to save them when I do this. You might want to not save over your images when you're doing this. I'm just going to save over them, and they need to be saved for photo merge to work, even if you're using it from here. I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. Well, this one here, we really want this for the bottom of the neck. If you don't have an image like this, then that's okay. This is just icing on the cake. Try to cut all the white on your images though. Image crop, or you can use a crop tool, whichever you like best. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to get all the white out. These features of the face are going to be represented by the direct on picture anyways. So we don't care if like crop them out right now. Photo merge works best if it has some overlapping though. So this picture here is going to merge in with this picture here. About like that. The eyes are going to be the overlapping part. What this is going to do is it's going to unroll this texture for use to wrap around the models. Typically the more views you can get, slightly different views, then the better. And while I'm doing this mundane task right now, the trick to really good looking textures that look really good when you're close up is the size of them. You want these things to be huge. The bigger the better. Good rule of thumb is you can always resize down, but resizing up adds pixelation and stuff in your images. So as long as you resize down, everything's fine. So make it as big as you can handle it, your computer can handle it, then resize it to make the performance needs you need. Alright, here's the other way to get to photo merge. You got File, Automate, Photo Merge at the bottom. That's going to be using the things that you have open. It's going to warn you that only open files that are saved can be used in photo merge. The reason why it's warning me that is because I have 2 down here that are unsaved. I don't want them included anyways. Okay, you can remove files here from the list. I want all these in there though, so I'm not going to remove any. It's going to do the processing again. And it's going to open up a big white screen, and I have to resize it. For some reason it doesn't remember what the last window size was. So your screen's going to flash bright white for a second while I resize this window. And actually, if you have a digital camera, most digital cameras come with their own program that duplicates this functionality. Canon's Photo Stitch is another one I have, but I just like to use this to include it in Photoshop. Okay, so now let's try this again. Now I want the view where he's slightly turning. Match up the pupils, the nose best as possible, and just play with it till it looks a little bit better. Alright, looks like the forehead, it's got a little bit of stuff we're going to need to tweak with a little bit later. And the chin's going to have some messing with, but we can do that after we're done with photo merge. Oh, I can't resize this one to fit, so I'm just going to have to leave that out of it. And we want this one at the top of the head, we're going to leave this one out of it. So let me talk a little bit about the tools in here. Perspective, this is for panoramics only. You don't want to use this in this capability. What that's going to do is it's going to try to match perspective for your panoramics, and what it ends up doing is resizing your stuff. Normal is what I usually like to leave it on, because the camera has its own perspective in there. Cylindrical mapping tries to take the vanishing point, or the horizon of your panorama, tries to mess with it to keep it centered throughout the middle. Works pretty good, but it really distorts the outsides of your image. Advanced blending, that's using it to do its own blending. Looks pretty horrible right here, but usually it looks pretty good. Thinking this blending right here is about as good as I'm going to get it with these. If I would have came in and cut off a little bit more of the sides, I think it would have worked a little bit better. Would have blended a little bit better. Just keep it layers as layers. That's going to not blend it together, so it'll be just like as if you place the layers on that portion without having it blend them at all. That's works good. I'm almost tempted to use it right now and do my own blending, but I'll show you without it. So what it's going to do, since I didn't keep it as layers, it's going to open up a new Photoshop file. It's going to put all those images I put in there where they are, try to blend them together for me, and then it's all going to be on one layer. And it usually takes a little bit of while. The reason why it's taking so long is that I got the video running and encoding what I'm doing and stuff. So we're just going to have to wait for it. Wow, that looks pretty ugly. Sometimes this works really well, sometimes it really sucks. I could try it again, or I could just show you guys how to work without photo merge. Alright, so what we want out of here is the top portion of his hair. We're going to make him bald anyways, we don't want that image. This is important here. I'm going to copy it, Control C, paste it into here. What this is going to do is see how it doesn't have that thick line right there. We want to try to avoid any unnecessary shadows in our image. Kind of paste them out and stuff, paint them out. So I just want to match the size a little bit here. And match where the chin is. Just reducing the opacity a little bit so I can see through. I forgot this layer wasn't on your screen. Alright. Grab the eraser tool and make the hardness all the way to 0. Diameter as big as you want it. It's going to be different because it depends on what your image size is. I want the opacity all the way up right now. And you just go in here and paint out a little bit what you don't want. This is kind of blending it together for us. Okay. Now this big old line right here is not good. Wasn't there the first time I tried photo merge to do this kind of a thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redo this the old-fashioned way with layers and the eraser tool. So just stick it where it looks like it should go. Do your own advanced blending. Okay, now I want a little bit more. Looks like photo merge is pretty useless this time, but it has saved me lots of time before, so I kind of wanted to show you it. Alright, this area right here, there's a very strong contrast of light and dark on his shoulder and his neck. So I'm going to drop the opacity and kind of blend it together. I don't want to paint over one and get rid of that color information because that's tan, it's not really unwanted shadows. So I kind of want to blend from it to kind of blend it into the neck, and that looks a little bit better right there. This looks a little bit unnatural here. Because I erased too much of it. Let me delete that layer and try again. Control T is how I get this to resize for me. Hit enter when you're done. The tool goes away. And grab the eraser tool and kind of blend in these corners here. I want to put the opacity back up to 100. I'm not trying to blend from light and dark, I'm just trying to blend into similar looking areas here. And as long as your hardness is all the way down, it's going to give you a nice blending on the edge. If the hardness is all the way up, then you can see how hard of an edge it gives you. Control Z to undo that. I'm not going to worry too much about this other side because I'm pretty sure I'm just going to split the image down the middle and then duplicate. Now I just noticed we got a duplication of the eye here. Don't want that, so I'm just trying to find the layer that's on. It's layer 2. I'm going to erase into it. I want to get the original eye. It extends into other layers. Control-Alt-Z steps backwards. Looks like that wasn't giving me the results I wanted. So I'm going to come in here and find the image that I want, the front here. I'm going to take the area that's giving me problems, and I'm just going to copy and paste it in as this new layer, its own layer. And then I will blend that in. That looks better, but we got the same problem right here. So I'm going to show you a new tool. This right here is called the Clone Stamp tool. Hold Alt down and select an area that you want to clone, and then you can paste that area somewhere else. So once I do this, I can paint directly on the other thing. It's not showing up right now because I'm in the bottom layer, and the information that I'm painting is covered up. So I'm going to flatten the image. It's going to get rid of all the layers. And then I can select my area and then kind of paint over it. Alright, that gets rid of the stuff. The opacity wasn't very high, so okay. Now, looks like the image is coming together pretty good. You can see how this is going to be used. Let's go ahead and use this clone stamp tool to get rid of the white down here on the bottom, and I'll show you how to get rid of his hair. I'm just going to do this kind of quick. Notice how I duplicated that blemish right there on accident. And we don't really care about this area over here because I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to cut them right down the middle, flip it over, make this so it's on the other side too, and then we're going to put it back on our model and resize it how it needs to be. Alright, so there we go. Now we're going to need to get rid of his hair here. So what we want to do is we want to get some images of a bald person. If you can talk really nicely to your friends, maybe they'll let you shave their head and take a bunch of pictures of them, but I kind of doubt it. So this is the area of his head that I want to use. As Control C, Control N, Control V, that puts it in its own little thing. I can close this down now and erase away the parts that I don't need. Alright, now one thing to note, this is definitely a different skin color, so we need to come back in here and I'm going to show you another tool. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to select a representative skin selection of this person's skin tone. Okay, so that has pretty much all the elements that we want. I'm going to Control C, Control N, Control V, paste in its own layer. Okay, and I'm going to make this match that, is what I want to do. So if we come into here, we go Image, Adjustments, Match Color. That's going to allow us to adjust this color to match other images. So the source, I'm going to say, sorry, let me put it on your screen so you can see it. Source, I want to be Untitled 6. Okay. Now you can see they match pretty good. Really neat tool. Very, very useful. I don't need, actually I'm going to keep that around because I want to use that for the rest of the bald head parts too. Alright, so I have this. Control A will select all of it. Control C to copy it. Control V to stick it in our image. And we can just put it wherever we need it. Look like that image wasn't quite as zoomed in as this one. So I'm going to resize it. Okay. And I don't want to erase to blend this in because there's hair under it. What I'll do is I'll use that clone stamp tool to blend in later. I can actually erase right here. We don't need that information covering up the real information. We just kind of want to have it cover up his hair is all. Okay, looks like there's a part of an ear there. I want to get rid of that. Okay, so we just repeat this for the other images I have in here. Okay, so image, adjustments, match color. Source, still Untitled 6. Don't need this guy anymore. Control A, Control C to copy. Also minimize them. I left the ear in there so I can match up the ear. Should be about the right size. And then I'm going to come in here and erase away the ear. Try to blend in a little bit down here, save me some time later. And blend into the top head here. Okay, we can blend in down here because there's no hair underneath it. Just want to use the sideburns of this person. By the way, this match color is going to work really well for you once you are done with this head and you're ready to, say, make a body for it, and you don't have the body images for the same thing as, like, you don't have a body to match the head images wise. Then you can use any body and any head and just use the match color to make it work. Okay, there's the forehead here. And since our forehead UVs for the character are kind of squashed, I'm not going to keep it in the same proportions. I'm just going to throw it up here and then blend it in. Looks like this one got a little bit darker than I want. So I can come here, image adjustments, brightness, contrast, and I can make it a little bit brighter. Looks like it's going a little bit too bright, so drop the contrast a little bit, get rid of those highlights. It's a little bit better right there. Drop the opacity, do a blend for the forehead into there. And it works if you drop the opacity and then keep on lowering the opacity as you go up. It works really well. Okay. Looks like I got a problem with this because he's got hair here, but he doesn't have hair here. So I'm just going to resize it to cover up that fact. Okay, so there we go. That's how you make them bald. You can see it's actually working a little bit. So let's go ahead and flatten this image out. A lot of people like to keep all their layers floating around, but it's going to help us out right now because we're going to use the clone stamp tool to fill in the rest of this and clean it up a lot. Okay, I noticed this here. I don't think I didn't, but this whole half is going to be cloned and copied over there, so I'm just going to not worry about that. So let's come in here. Remember, hit Alt. It switches cursors to let you know what you're doing. You can select anywhere in here and then paint with that area. See how it tags along and kind of moves. You want to avoid using too much of the same area, because if it gets repetitious, you can see it with the eye. And if you don't like it, just undo. Basically what I want to do is just cover up all this area up here with something. Gotta watch if you move it too far, then it starts copying over things you didn't want. Okay, looks like there's a hard area right here that we need to kind of blend together a little bit. So what I want to do is grab some of this area over here, because it's a more detailed area, and I want to paint over this other area. So if I drop the opacity on this, it's going to blend a little bit more. Okay, you don't want to do this too much, because it ends up taking away some detail. Like if you look and see how, I don't know if you can see this or not, but when you zoom in here, it looks a little blurred, instead of being, where you can see the skin follicles and everything. It's a little bit blurred, so you want to avoid doing that on major areas. It's usually best to use 100%, but sometimes you just can't get it to look right like that. So then if you drop the opacity down a little bit, it might help. Okay, there's a pretty nice texture to use. It's not done yet because we need to mirror it over, make the other side, and then we need to put it in Photoshop, work with it. But there's some problems with it right now as it sits, because there's too much information that doesn't belong in the color channel of your model. So what I'm talking right now is the ear. How you can see in here, it's shaded for you, and you can see lines and stuff. That's going to show up on the model, and it's not going to look too good. So what you're going to want to do is or what I usually do, is paint out the ear. I want to make it just a blob of color. Since we have so much definition in our ear that we made, we can paint it out, and it'll look good, because the shape of the ear is what gives the ear it's very variation of color and everything like that. The ear tends to be a little bit more red, so you kind of want to use the colors you see here. I'm not going to do it right now because it's important to keep this information for bump maps and specularity and stuff like that. So, well, you can do it right now if you wanted to. If you were doing a low resolution mesh and you didn't have a really detailed ear, then you would want to keep this mesh like this and use the fake lighting information that's contained in this picture for your low resolution mesh. Say you're doing it for games. Many games have like 2 polygons for the ear. It's just a flat piece sticking out of the head, and then they map on an image of an ear to it. And as the person's flying by or moving around real quick, you don't really notice that it's just a flat polygon. But since we're doing a high resolution mesh, we should really paint it out. Same thing goes for the nose. The nostrils and stuff are going to be in the way. Those little black marks that it looks like on the image that we can tell is a nostril. When it gets mapped to the model, it'll look like there's scuffs around his nose wherever we put him. So we need to paint those out and kind of smooth it out a little bit. in any other areas, like the eyebrows, we could really go without eyebrows. It's just gonna. We should usually use a hair plugin to create the hair. If you don't want to use that, then you can leave the eyebrows in. It's up to you. You can use this same way we got rid of the hair up here to get rid of the eyebrows. Use the clone stamp tool. Zoom in so you can see what you're doing. Since we're going to copy this one over, I'm only going to paint out this eyebrow. And I want to use skin that's near the eyebrow because it has a different look to it. Like you can tell that this is more visible pores and everything than say over here. You don't want any facial hair inside the eyebrow. So I'm going to kind of just paint over it. Opacity 100%. Alright, now I got some of the eyebrow a little bit too far out, and that shouldn't look like that. So I'm going to paint with this kind of skin here. That does belong there. Alright, so there we go, eyebrow gone. Now the eye does have the same problems. The lashes, if they are overlapping the skin, this one's got pretty good lashes, so if they're not overlapping the skin, we want to take care of it. This is going to produce a really weird effect on our model because our eye socket, this eye right here, is going to be mapped to the back of the eye socket. It's going to look really weird. I don't want to paint over it because the eye's got a lot of detail in there that we need, like this little corner of the eye here. We want to map that to the right spots in there. So I'll show you how to do that. So let me paint out the nose real quick. I'm undoing those last two because I dropped the opacity down to kind of blend in the shadow, and that's just going to make the nose blurry. And when you zoom into the nose, you really want to see these pores. Okay, so it's going to look weird to you on the texture because it doesn't have a nose, but it'll look good in the game, or in the model in Max. So let's go ahead and paint out this ear and fix this little problem here. Mainly worried about getting rid of the lines that are formed by the texture, not necessarily the colors inside here. Colors are important to try to maintain, but I don't want a harsh line that's going to show up on the skin. This is just going to make skinning it a little bit easier. Alright, that should be good. I'll be able to adjust the UVs in the character to avoid these things. I really should go in there and paint out a little bit more on the inside here, but, well, yeah, let me show you how to do it. I shouldn't cut corners when I'm doing a tutorial. Alright, so now I want a really small brush. I'm going to be using this information in here to get rid of these lines. I want to keep the color, but I want to get rid of the harsh separations. Alright, now I got this highlight duplicated 3 times, looks weird. So I want to get rid of that. Okay, there's a harsh line right here. Should try to get rid of that. Okay, so we got rid of the deep black holes and everything, and we kept all the color information. Now, looks like we got a little bit of white down here. Let me paint that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take from the source directly above, move it down a little bit. Just going to take a little swipe down here. Looks like my brush is too small. Alright, I got rid of that thin line on the bottom. We got a little bit too many duplication of freckles here. So I'm just going to paint two of them out. Don't want any repetition that attracts the eye and kind of shows it that it's fake. So nose is painted out. So now what we want to do is actually do the duplication. Copy that. I'm going to do it in a new image. Oops, I messed up. And then I'm going to make it twice as wide. So if I come down here to %, it's not showing up. Okay, I'll do this and then I'll say image size. This will give me %. Make it twice as wide. You go image. Actually edit, adjustments, transform. There it is. Flip over the horizon. Now we take and put it to where it should go. Zoom into the middle here and blend out the line it's going to create. We're going to use the erase again to blend. Not paying attention. Oh, we'll paste these way down this way. Thought my computer was stalling up from all the things I have open. Alright, that got rid of that for us. Now, the image is way too wide, and if you remember, let me flip over to here, show you what our UVs look like. Notice how the whole face had to be squashed down to fit in this square. Well, we're going to need to squash down our texture and to stick it on this. So, come back over here into Photoshop. I'm done with all this other stuff. I can close it down. I'm going to say this is a backup copy just because I don't want to lose this work. Because that's got all the real detailed information, and I'm going to be messing with this and making the information go away. Don't need that anymore. There's our UV information we're going to be using. Okay, so now what we want to do is take this layer here, which is our UV information, copy it. I'm going to paste it right on top of this. Notice how small it is. So our screen capture was way smaller than our image texture is, so just Control T to enter transform. If you hold Shift down while you drag, it'll keep it proportional. That's important. What we want to do is want to drag it as big as we can while keeping it proportional. Perfect square. Then hit enter. Okay, now we got our UV information put on top of here. We're going to make this background texture match it. First thing, Control E will merge. Let me show you that. Select on the two layers we have here. Select on this one, Control E, it'll merge it down with the next layer. That way you don't have to flatten all of them, you can just merge individual layers. Now we want to mess with this layer here, so leave it on layer 1. Control T, bring up the transform. What we want to do is try to match the eyes as best as possible. Eye and the lips. You can use that small nudge. You don't want to, or you don't care if it's perfect or not. Just want to get as close as possible, and we're going to go into Max and we're going to adjust the UVs to get it perfect. Alright, so hit enter to finalize it. It'll do the mapping, transform and adjust the textures. We lost a little bit of detail there because we shrunk it down to half its size. If you didn't have a texture that was like really cramped like that, if you did your own UV mapping, you could have used the full size. Looks like we got some information over here in our UV map that's not used. So I can see my map better. I'm create a new layer. Stick it on the very bottom. The way you stick it on the bottom is you bring up this layers panel and just drag it, put it under it. I'm on that layer right now, so I'm going to paint in it. Just going to fill it all with whatever color I chose. Let's do black. Okay. Come back up to this layer. And it'll be easier just to adjust the actual UVs in Photoshop. So just come to the select tool, you can select all the black. Then you can say select inverse. That's going to give you all of your texture here. And say image crop. Okay, now it's not going to be aligned anymore, but it should work really good. So I'm going to bring up my layers again. I want to hide the UV mapping on top, otherwise that'll show up in our texture. We don't want that. Go ahead and save it out. Alright, I typed in skin texture, tab brings you down to the format, hit J, it'll go to JPEG. I'm going to save it directly on the desktop. Maximum quality, if it ever pops up. There we go. Now we can come over here into Max, screws over to our material editor. Let's go ahead and keep our checker here. We'll just mess with another texture. It's going to be a bitmap texture. Go to the desktop here. That was skin texture, right? Yeah, I think so. That's it. Now we just drag, say we want that to be a skin texture. Tell the skin texture to map it in there. Because of that mapping problem where we had a little bit extra thing, the eyes and everything got moved over to the side. We're going to fix that inside here. What we're going to do should be giving me the option here to use skin texture. There we go. Show it in. I don't know why I wasn't doing it before. Now we can zoom in here and adjust these things. So let's move these in a little bit, give us a little bit of room to move everything over. And if you notice, you can shrink this window down and look and see what it's doing to your model, your texture. Looks like the lips are kind of lining up right. Everything else is okay, sorta. A little bit off here. We'll fix that individually. Alright. Let's try to space this out and give us as much on the line as possible, much information used as possible. I did add a little bit of distortion to our mesh doing that, so if you want to find a way around that, that's great. Looks like it's really squished here, really wide open here. If you want, you can take all of these polygons right here and map them over to the other side, give us a little bit more room here, more or less over there. But let me come in here and show you how to map these eyes correctly. So zoom in really far. Notice how pixelated this image is. I'm not sure if you can see this really well. It might not make a difference to you, but it's going to make a really big difference to me. So if I come here to options, advanced options, gives you render width, render height. It's going to adjust how pixelated that image is. So it's going to bump it up to 512, 512. Alright, give me a lot more to work with here. So I can take these points around and move them where they need to go. I notice when I'm zooming in and out, the texture seems to be jumping around. So I'm just assuming that it's where it is usually, not in these anomalies. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. Okay, we want these edges to lie directly on the edges of the eye, because there's a lot of good information to be used there. But if we get it too close, it'll show us white. We don't want that cropping in there. Remember, this little thing right here isn't actually the pupil, it's the back of the eye, it's the socket. So we don't care where that goes, so I'm just going to kind of move it out of the way. It's going to give us a really weird look. It's like going to have the pupil stuck to the back of the eye socket. There's the eyelid. We want to match up with the eyelid there. Alright, let's see how that turned out. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this eye, do a quick render. Okay, looks like we got some stretching up here. And looks like the edge right there is pretty good. The red, fleshy, like shiny part of the eye that sticks in the corner of your eye, that looks like it's the right spot. Just need to get rid of this little anomaly up here, this little stuff, the stretching. Okay, and that stretching looks like it's probably caused by that. That was way too high. See that? Drop that a little bit, fix it out. Let's give us a little bit more out here. Got rid of that. Now we got a little bit of two-tone on the top of our eyelid. We don't like that. Let's drop these down a little bit. It's looking a little bit better. It'll look a lot better once you put a real eyeball in there, an animated eyeball. And when you have your model uses high resolution of a texture, as we did, or as I did, I don't know how high your resolution texture is, and you really zoom in on it and get some really cool detail. You can see the pores, stuff like that. It's really important if you want to have a close-up shot of your character. Okay, so that eye's looking pretty good. Let's move on, check out our lips. Another common problem area. Really dark down here. That looks like it's the inside of the lips. We need to move that down to where it's in the crack of the lips there. Scroll down. Yep, looks like the crack is right here, and in the picture the crack's right there. Or is it just jumping on me? Alright, that's where it usually is, so let's assume it's there. Looks like we can just move this whole thing up a little bit. See how we're doing here? A lot better. Got some anomalies on the side there. Let's fix that. Looks like that's a problem. The lips are wider than our UVs are. So let's bring out the centers here. After stretching it, let's check it out. Much better. I like that right there. Okay, other eye time. That's how it looks with no adjustments. Yeah, it looks a little off, I think. That just looks funny. Okay. It must be getting late. I'm finding humor in the weirdest things. Alright, move the eye over. Looks like we can save ourselves some time if we just resize it vertically. Oops, didn't mean to deselect. Like there's way too much white here. We need to move all this out here. We want that pink to be right in there. That's where the polygon is. So if you have this highlighted in yellow, which is really just selecting the select face, you can click on faces, or you can highlight things like that. It'll tell you where they are in the mesh. So we want this to be right in the corner here. See if we got it where we want it. I'm just manually looking right here. I want this to be all red. A little bit too much white in there. Too much eyelashes on top here. Other than that, looks looking pretty good. Okay, the eyelashes is because this is too low. And the white is, need to move these out a little bit. Let's see how this looks. Not looking much better. Too much white here. Too much eyelashes. So move these out a little bit. And move these up a little bit. Alright, much better. Still too much white there though. Looks like that's the reason right there. Alright, you won't be able to see the rest of this inside once the eye gets stuck in there. Let's go ahead and check out her head a little bit. Ears look like they're a problem. Definitely the ears. Looks like he's got a funny expression on his face. But that's not the texture's fault. Yeah, looks like the ears. Okay, let's work on those. Looks like it was way off on the ear here. Getting closer. Just want to check this side here and see if the textures. Alright, there is no mapping of the internals of the ear on the back of the head. So that's good.
Okay. And your friend was just playing Pretty Woman.
Looks like the ear's crammed really low in here. So what I'm going to do is make some room so I can use the scale tool. I want to make sure I'm not doing too much distortion to the head here. That's way too distorted. That's a little bit better. I'd like to be able to zoom a little bit in, farther in there, but it distorts my texture every time I do it. Looks like I didn't save this one with the air relax, so I'm just going to quickly relax it. make your texture for it. You can do a lot of more texture work here, making bump maps and specular maps and all the different types of maps there are. They actually add a lot of different, a lot of realism to it. When I get to a tutorial on texturing, I'll show you how to do all these maps. An advanced tutorial on the different maps and everything. So that's our quad head. You can do real quick things with the character and make it more, not so much of a neutral head. This is a good start with and build from to give your character some character aspects and personality. Okay, I hope you enjoyed them.